What is up, everybody? Welcome to Perspective Gaming. I'm your host, Flame078, logging in from the real world to give you perspective. Or more specifically, getting perspective. This video series tackles something that's been on my mind, and I spell out my takes. Then afterwards, we have a discussion that helps us better understand ourselves. Today's topic, I want to explore the truth behind Game Pass and the reality I think Microsoft is leading us towards. Let's get to it. I have been wrestling with an idea for a while now, and ever since its inception, I have kind of been putting it aside, trying to dismiss it and not really talking about it. But E3 ended last week, and I just can't help that my idea is something worth talking about. And frankly, it's not a complicated idea. It's the fact that video games may no longer be $60.
Say what?
I know that sounds pretty crazy, and before your imagination start going wild, I do not mean games will be more expensive. I'm not going to debate that methodology. To understand how I got here, I need to tell you what are the signs telling me how this is happening. First, we need to understand how games are making money, and then second, we need to understand the positions that big companies like Microsoft are going towards. The experience of buying a game has dramatically changed over the years that I've been alive. I mean, it used to be quite simple as going to the store, buying the game, and play. Or you could buy it or borrow it from a friend, or even rent it at like Blockbuster or something. It was really pretty straightforward. Today, you can download your game, you can go to a store to rent or buy the game, you can even get a physical copy get sent to you at your house from online. As gamers, we have a lot of choice in terms of how we get our games. Each of these methods have different implications on how the developing team gets the money after making the game. How this breaks down is game developers, publishers, and distributors. So for example, Naughty Dog makes the game, Sony is a publisher, and GameStop is the distributor. Now this model is what we're talking about for physical games, or the games that you get disc for. For digital games in this age, things are a little bit different because you cut the distributor out. Now it's just the publisher and the game dev. Now I'm no business guy, but splitting 2 ways is a lot better than doing it 3 ways.
Phrasing.
But this is a recent development. For the longest time, developers had to deal with this 3-pie split because it was not easy to do it another way. This day and age, and with this generation as an example, the decline of physical discs is growing year by year. Just take a look at this graph outlining the metrics between physical copies and digital copies. As you can see, the trend is going down. And just looking from the start of this generation to now, the percentage of physical copies have reduced nearly in half. And I know before you get angry or shout, I am among one of those fools who still buys physical discs. And this is because I love the idea of having a physical library that represents my library of games. But that is neither here nor there. The fact is, digital sales are going to be the norm, and it is the future. And that essentially was it. The selling of a game was a big way money was made. But as we moved to the digital age, we moved to get another trend that allows a supplemental income to game developers. And that other half of the puzzle comes from understanding how companies make money after the game is released. And you all know where I'm going with this. We are talking about microtransactions. Simple as that. Or how I'll call them for the rest of the video, after purchase spending. After purchase spending was not always big, but this is also not entirely new in this gen or in this day and age. They've always been there, but have incrementally gotten more out there as technology advances. It started off small. It started with just buying expansions for certain games. Then from those expansions that evolved to DLC, and then that DLC turned into season passes. All this for the ability to get more money. And it's not all grimy and bad intended. I mean, you pay for more content. So like, that's the purpose of these additional purchases, is you're buying more stuff, more value from the game. Along this growing industry, we also got the rise of free-to-play games, but more importantly, the freemium model of making money. And that's essentially adding microtransactions into your game and get players to spend money on your game so you can make money. Now, I'm not here to discuss the bad and good about how this is moving to our AAA games. That's not what I'm here about, but understand that this idea moved into our games and it is a thing. Big companies like EA, Ubisoft, and Activision make a good chunk of their money from after purchase spending. Like looking at some articles and just Googling it, roughly 40% of it comes from after purchase spending. That's a big chunk of the revenue if you were to like break out the percentage of like that and how much they make in selling copies of the game. And so yes, this is how money is made in this industry, and I know I'm pretty sure this is not new for a lot of you, but I needed to cover it because I think this is what we need to emphasize in my next couple of points. Now, where do I think the companies are going? I'm going to talk about Microsoft because they're the ones that really cemented this idea in me. So I'm going to focus on their actions and how I'm interpreting everything that they're doing thus far. Let's start with the models and services Microsoft has brought to the table this generation. The Play Anywhere initiative. This idea that I can play my games on my console and PC seamlessly. Play my game on PC, then go on my Xbox and continue the same game. Pretty cool at first glance, and it's pretty awesome for a gamer like me because I kind of like that idea of being able to play one place and go another place and still have the same information. But what struck me about weird then was the fact that this counteracted the point of the Xbox One. It really undersold the Xbox. Like, what was the point of buying an Xbox if I can just play my games on PC? Like, it was a very weird initiative in terms of what a console maker should be pushing for me, which is to buy your console. To compound this sentiment, Xbox then now launches Game Pass, a subscription service that allows you to get a massive catalog of games, which is sweetened by the deal that exclusives come day one on Game Pass. Now again, this service looks pretty cool face value. I mean, getting a shit ton of games for what seems to be less money seems pretty awesome. Though, in terms of tying it to Xbox and that whole system, to make it really worthwhile, Xbox needs to release at least 2 good on par exclusive to make this worthwhile. I mean, with $10 a month, that's $120 you're spending a year, $60 a game. Yeah, that's how that math works. So the announcements and the talk and the push from Microsoft on these services made me question what they were doing, because it didn't seem like this was a good idea to push selling their console. But what if this was the long game? At E3, Microsoft made a commitment to us saying that they're going to do better. They bought studios. They're essentially going to make sure that Xbox comes with exclusives that we've all been craving for the last 5 years. I go into full detail in my E3 Microsoft videos, so I'll leave a link in the cards and the section down below. So check that out after this. So if this sentiment is true, then we are in for a treat as gamers, because Microsoft seems like to be pulling all the stops. If you don't get what I mean, picture this. Imagine Sony's library of exclusives paired with a huge catalog of old games at the tip of your fingers for a simple price of $10 a month. Also add into the fact that you can play these games, most of these games, on your PC with no issue. How appealing is this Xbox One to you? Pretty freaking appealing, right? Like, that sounds like a steal. And my first thought is, wait a minute, how is this not hurting the game developers? And to be honest, that is something I'm concerned about. But I would imagine that Game Pass was set up in a way that somehow makes it attractive for these game studios to sign up and agree to this deal. I mean, every first party studio under Xbox has to put their games out there. Like, that's a thing they agreed to, because if not, they would not be saying all first party exclusives will be on Game Pass day one. Everyone had to agree to that. So somehow along those mechanics, they'll be making sure to get their money's worth. But there is part of me that thinks there's a bigger picture than just worrying making sure the devs get their piece. What is to gain if you put your $60 game on a service that you pay $120 a year for? What if Microsoft sees value in getting more people on subscriptions, because subscriptions are more profitable? I mean, with subscriptions, you can reach out to a lot more people and get a lot more people hooked, because it's more enticing to say, hey, pay $10 a month and you'll get all this versus you gotta pay $60 for each individual thing. It just sounds more appealing. Remember how I mentioned after purchase spending was a big part of revenue in games today? And knowing that this is not going away, what if that is the reason? What if the reason Microsoft Studios are okay with going on this program was because now they have full reign to be allowed to implement these systems in every single game? I mean, that's a win for them because that means they'll get more money out of us per game. Hear me out, guys. Think about it like this. I want you to think about the idea of removing the notion I paid $60 from your mind. This would be a massive hit to the mentality gamers will have in the future. Think about it. Do you say I pay $11 a month for Netflix, or do you say I have Netflix? Do you say I pay $75 a year for Amazon Prime, or do you say I have Amazon Prime? It's a very subtle difference in terms of wording, but that difference is huge when it comes to gaming. We say we own the game. We are aware of the game's value up front. We know it costs X amount. We say it costs this amount. In this age of fighting really shitty practices, what is one thing that is common in arguments against bad anti-consumer practices? I paid $60 for this game. Why the hell do I have to pay more for insert argument thing you're fighting here? When it comes to arguing shitty after purchase spending practices, we always talk about what we paid at entry, breaking down the level of justification based on how much we paid up front. Putting games in a subscription puts the illusion of free. Not saying that it is, but it does. When you think about watching movies on Netflix, you don't think about, oh man, I gotta pay $15 to watch this movie. You're just thinking, holy crap, I can watch this movie. It's gonna be the same thing with video games. I'm not thinking about, oh, I gotta pay $60 for this video game. Boop, click, download, start playing. You remove this idea in your subconscious that you paid upfront for this, and removing that notion is going to reduce our ability to be proactive when it comes to shitty after purchase spending practices. Because there is no purchase anymore. They're just gonna be there to a game that exists. That is the kind of world I envision with everything that's going on here. A world where you pay money for a subscription to get a ton of games, but then these game developers, to make sure they get their money's worth since they're on this service, put in these after purchase spending mechanisms because they know, because it is proven that they will make money off it. They know, they already know that this is a thing, and this is why loot boxes and season passes and DLC and all this stuff is in our games, because they know it works and they know they're going to get money off it. Microsoft has put themselves in a position where they can actually test my theory, and the future of this model is dependent on how Microsoft pulls this off. They have the tools and services to make this happen, and their last piece to really get the ball rolling is the games. And if E3 was any indication, they seem to be solving that. And by solving that, they now have everything they need to kill the $60 game in favor of a full subscription and in-game purchase revenue model. I mean, the premise is extremely consumer friendly if done correctly. There's a big if. So if this model succeeds with the masses, it's not going to take long for Sony to follow suit, for Nintendo to follow suit. And that is a very scary world to think about and a very uncertain future for us. And all honestly, at this point, it depends if Microsoft really has the balls to pull this off, because they have everything they need. And that is it. Thank you so much for tuning in on this installment of Getting Perspective. Now I turn it over to you. As I say all the time, I wish to build perspective. And that only starts with conversation. What do you guys think about this? Am I crazy in thinking this could be the direction Microsoft is trying to go? What do you think about subscription services in general? Leave all this and more in the comment section down below. As always, if you like this video, please hit that like button and share with your friends. And if you want to get more of this kind of content, hit that subscribe button and make sure to hit the notification bell to know when my next video drops. For video suggestions and one-on-one interactions with me, Twitter is the best way to go. So please make sure to follow my handle. That will be in the description box down below. This is Perspective Gaming. I'm your host, Flame078, logging off for now. And until next time, adios.